lovedreamingpeach.com.
How are you? So I am watching Day 12, which is Day 12 of Karen Reed. I'll do a reaction opinion video about it separately. And I only got up to lunch, but I have a few other notes that I wanted to say about like other videos yesterday and the day before that I had kind of forgotten or cut myself off or whatever. So at one point I said, oh, and another thing, which I forgot to follow up with because the 10 minutes ended and I had to start again. And another thing was that a lot of the people who I think are pro Karen Reed people, I believe that not all, but a lot, some portion of those people, in my opinion, they think that court and trial and legal proceedings happen the way they've seen on TV or in movies. And when you watch a movie or a show and there's like legal stuff, almost 99.99% of the time, things that lawyers say, things witnesses say, things judges say, evidence that they put in, the way that they do it, the process, the proceedings, the everything is fictional. It's not how real life works in the courtroom. It's not how evidence is presented. It's not how witnesses are questioned. It's not how judges respond or how lawyers react or act or any of that stuff. It's fictional. And my perception is that a lot of people who are watching this trial who think that there's this widespread conspiracy theory, which is involving 30 to 70 people to keep it all going, just genuinely think that fictional law stuff is how real stuff works, because, you know, they, like I said yesterday, they're conflating every little snaggle tooth, every little tiny, that wasn't meant to be anyway, every little, like, what did I say? Every little dingleberry of possibility dangling in the butt cheeks of maybe, and they want to like snatch that out and like smear it all over and expand it and stretch it and make it, and I just don't think it's gonna fly. I don't. Okay, so what I wrote: novels and shows show legal proceedings and trials that are not actually how real life rules are, and many people have no clue about real life trials. Alessi taking complex info he doesn't understand to try to make something seem like something it isn't, which again is the theme of this trial. Trying to make something seem like something it isn't, and something it is seem like something else it isn't. Then I had another thought again as I was listening to some of the voicemails that Karen was leaving. For example, specifically 9:44 p.m. It's Thursday, May 2nd. No, wait, May 8th. Let me go make some notes. My thoughts. Let me grab my notes. I'm going to go with this lighting. Let's see if I want to turn this on again or not. It messes up the lighting on my face because I don't want to turn my bright light on because it's too dark. It hurts. Well, today I also recorded a lot, and so I finally, after 2 days, I got it to save. Let me put some lip balm on. I finally got the frickin' 2 hour and 15-minute video of yesterday, day 11, for the Karen Reed trial 2, which was Wednesday, May 7th, 2025, and it took forever for my dang computer to save what I screen recorded of the day, because I started watching it and then I thought, you know what, this is really interesting. So of course you can watch the whole entire day for free, but I screen recorded 2 hours and 15 minutes that I specifically wanted to record. Then I have an hour and 54 minutes that I screen recorded from today. So the one from yesterday, I called it 2:27 a.m. How's Long to Die in Cold? Karen Reed retrial. Day 11. Trooper Keefe. I thought it was Keith. It's Keefe, Jessica Hyde. So Keefe isn't that interesting without the O. So it's just Keefe, not O'Keefe. All right, anyway, so today was Trooper Buchanan. And, let's see. So I'll read my notes. Oh, yeah, and another thing. I guess I should do that because I was finishing up my thought from earlier this morning. I talked about and another thing about how a lot of people seem to have this fictional view of the legal process, which they probably base off of the Netflix shows, the movies, all the shows that they watch, but not reality. Even like Law and Order, it's fictional. Like, that is not how real life works. Okay, so the other thing, where did it go? Is it back here? My other thought was, because one of the voicemails that Karen left, she was screaming that, your niece Kaylee's, your niece Kaylee's laying next to me and you're out there fucking another woman, you're such a pervert. And then the way she was calling Jen and the way she called Carrie. Let me close this. And it occurred to me, I could see the possibility of she did all that because she wanted witnesses to her alibi that she was distraught and upset. She didn't know he was dead. She was looking for him because he didn't come home. She was so worried. That's why, because, on one hand, it's like, how on earth would she call and scream and say all that in front of the niece? But then it's like, maybe it was strategic. Why would she call Jen? Why would she call Carrie? Like, why would she call them? And again, it makes me wonder, was she trying to get, like, witnesses to her supposedly thinking he's still alive, but then it spiraled into, like, I don't know. I will say about today with, wait, before I get into that, I don't think I've said this, or maybe I did, about Jessica Hyde, that a lot of the questions that she was being asked, her facial expressions were very telling, and it was really cracking me up, to be honest. Now I'm getting tired. I gotta yawn. I have a mission for myself, which is to start to go to bed no later than 1 p.m. and then maybe gradually move that to midnight. I've always stayed up late, but it's gotten really bad. And you know what? It's not doing me any favors. Actually, I always feel like shit when I stay up too late. So I need to just stop, and then I can start waking up earlier, and then I'll get more stuff done, and then I don't need to stay up super late, and that's what I want to do. Okay, anyway, let's go back. And another thing, if Karen called John in front of Kaylee, could that be for an alibi to make Kaylee believe that Karen, was jealous, but not aware that she'd hit him? This was the other thing. And Yuri Buchanan was talking about, apparently, they did talk about some potentially deleted Ring camera footage. There were moments where they knew for sure that Karen had showed up at, like, for example, midnight, 12:36 a.m. There was the ping on his Wi-Fi, on her car, and or cell phone that she got to his house, but yet that Ring camera footage was missing, and they suspect that she deleted it because it had evidence of her broken taillight. Then when she pulled out that other time, I was paying attention. The time when she pulled out, supposedly bumped her car on his car right in that exact spot. It was quite weird because the driveway was like this way, and so she pulls out like extra, extra, extra far to kind of like as if she was hitting him, when really she had so much room that it would have made all the sense for her to like pull out like that, which is probably what she did every other time. But again, I'm speculating. Okay, and okay, so thoughts about today. They did show John's shirt, both of his shirts. There was an image of a black Jeep or like an SUV looking vehicle on one of them, which is really tragic and like spooky that he happened to be wearing a shirt with a black SUV looking vehicle that he got killed by. So is that a clue? Was that a little clue from John saying, hey, it was? That it's like literally on my shirt, a black Jeep / SUV. And, you know, somebody had said, didn't Jen McCabe get on the stand at 227? And then there was a report that was 227 pages. And I saw somebody was like, it's a sign from John. And I'm thinking like, I would think if it's a sign from John, it's like 227, ain't it, guys? You think that's so? But of course, if you think that Jen McCabe is lying, you're going to say, no, 227 is a sign from John that, yes, it means something. Okay, so, but I also, okay, so about today, I will say that, you know, I definitely do have a bias. And my bias is that I think that Karen hit him. And all of this evidence, like, so some people will look at the evidence and, like, they watch Trooper Buchanan showing evidence, pieces of plastic, talking about interviews. They found the straw by the berm, the curb. Then there was one clip where he's like, she's giving him the middle finger. So they go through all the drinks, all the video clips from CF McCarthy's, and I got a yawn again. So I want to make it short so I can get to bed. Where they were showing all of the drinks. And at one point he's like, there, she's giving him the finger. But they were both laughing. She was standing facing him and another man was facing, the three of them were facing each other. And they were all laughing. So I'm like, okay. I mean, obviously that moment was laughter. Oh, and then AJ, he asked him, like, don't you know that colloquialism? And he's like, I do not know the term colloquialism. He's a homicide detective. He's very skilled at interrogations, in my opinion. Alan Jackson could not fluster him. That's what I wrote. Alan Jackson cannot fluster this guy at all. But then, of course, a lot of people in the chats were like, oh, he's so dishonest. He's just not answering. And so I wrote this note. I'm so tired. I have to keep yawning. If you believe that they/he is lying or protecting, the blue wall and Trooper Proctor, you'll probably think he's lying. But I think he's doing his best to not allow the defense, Alan Jackson, drag him and disparage him and his work. Former Trooper Proctor, Alan Jackson said. So Alan Jackson was repeatedly questioning him, like, wasn't Trooper Proctor the lead investigator? Oh, I just noticed it looked kind of like a face. It's a lemon. Some pearls, and a rock. But from here, it kind of looked like a little... Oh my god. Girl, go to sleep. Okay, I will soon. Let me finish my thoughts. True. So Again, I want to say my thoughts about Trooper Proctor again. Do I think texting the things that he texted about Karen Reed to the group chat is bad? Yes. Do I think it's bad that, was he Sergeant Buchanan? That he, so he said, yeah, he thumbs up one of the things. He hadn't read it all. And, that may or may not be true. The thing about a homicide detective is that they are highly skilled, if they're any good. They are highly skilled at interrogating witnesses, suspects, and they are used to people trying to pull a fast one. They're used to people, like, I really think that the theme of this trial should be called making something that's one thing seem like something that it isn't, and making something else seem like something else that it isn't. And that's the theme, conflating everything. And I personally think that, yes, Trooper Buchanan should have done a better job supervising Trooper Proctor. And Trooper Proctor did get fired. Okay, I'm going to read over here. Trooper Michael Proctor was fired on March 19th, 2025 from the Massachusetts State Police. His dismissal followed months of suspension without pay and came after a trial board found him guilty of violating agency rules. The reasons for his determination included unsatisfactory performance and a violation related to alcoholic beverages, which maybe that was because of the dude left his gun and his badge in his car. I don't know. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. I have been so busy and I have so much work I should have really done today that I didn't do because I was so busy. Well, I was doing one thing I thought was going to take me like 20 minutes. It literally ended up taking me like 6 hours, and then I was listening to the trial. So, okay. So what I was really saying is, like, I feel that if at this point you just truly believe the defense's theory that all of these people were doing corrupt stuff on purpose to cover up a murder, like, the whole thing, though, is like, the whole blue wall of protection kind of doesn't make sense because it was a cop who was dead. And cops don't like when cops are dead. So what you'd have to believe is that, like, either a whole bunch of cops wanted John O'Keefe dead, and so they were all okay with this huge conspiracy to cover it up. Because why would cops cover up for cops killing cops? Like, on the face, that don't make no kind of sense. Because if you're a cop killer, if you're a cop who's a cop killer, then like, cops aren't safe around you. So then it's like, okay, well, if there's some big old conspiracy theory and cover up and stuff, you haven't found one shred of evidence. So this is my whole thing. Is it possible that Trooper Proctor should have been fired? Yes, I think he should have been fired. Did he do, like, again, like, that's what I cut myself off, was what I was going to say is texting fucked up texts, like sending nasty, insulting, like, gross words about somebody and being crass and talking about, oh, you didn't find any nudes, and just being a totally gross kind of guy. The kind of guy who would send nasty texts. To me, it's a big old fucking leap to go from, and then he would destroy actual evidence of a crime. He would fabricate evidence. He would plant evidence. He would frame an innocent woman for murder. Like, that is such a leap. Like people who have never done violent crimes, and they've stolen things, but they've never, ever, ever hurt anybody. And then all of a sudden they get accused of murder, and it's like, it doesn't mean that they've never done it. Of course, people who've never done anything Here, there's my kid. Like Corey Richins and Shanna Garner, Gardner. Apparently, if they are proven to be guilty of murdering their, well, one, it was her husband, the other one was her ex-husband. If, they're innocent until proven guilty, but if they're found guilty, then as far as I know, they had not done crimes before. It happens, people they just go for gold on the first, whatever. But my point is that it's really far-fetched. And, when someone has no history of violence or doing that kind of thing, it's a big leap, like texting disgusting, like gross stuff about someone. That's gross. But to turn around and be like, and therefore you did this other thing without any proof, like, this is what I'm saying. I can't stop feeling like, like Emily D. Baker and Peter Tragos and like other people who, maybe they're like looking from an incredibly detailed way of looking at it. And they're like, they asked this one question and the answer wasn't like really perfect and therefore was kind of elusive. And like, this person did this report, this person did this report, this person didn't say this. And it's like, I mean, I get it. Like, sometimes people don't do a good job. Sometimes people make typos, or something slips through, or they're just not that good at their job in general, and they get by because nothing major ever really happens, and then something major happens, and then it's like, oh my God, the incompetence. But what I am not feeling in this, like, yeah, there's some incompetence, and yeah, that guy deserved to be fired, and they didn't follow the most perfect protocol in every single instance of every single thing that they did. That is true. I won't deny that. I agree with that. But does that lead me to feel that they also planted evidence? Like, that's a big leap. They framed her? How did they get her to say all that stuff? Why did they kill John? How did they kill John? This is like the most perfect crime that you've ever heard of. There's 50 or 60 people in on this crime, and they disposed of every single piece of evidence. And it's just the most brilliant thing you've ever heard of, right? Like, but yet that many people conspiring together, and they couldn't have gotten a stronger case against her? That seems kind of unbelievable, as in, I don't believe that. You're telling me 50 people conspired together against one woman, and this is the best that they could do? A few pieces of taillight sprinkled and a straw and a shoe? And, I mean, there's a dead guy. So I really do believe that if 50 people had conspired to murder and frame and cover up who did it and pin it on someone else, wouldn't they feel like better? Wouldn't it be better? Like, I do think that the evidence against her is pretty damning. I do. And I think it's a combination of actual physical evidence. There were no eyewitnesses to the event, but there were eyewitnesses to, they were at the bar. They were going to the Albert's house. They went there. He never came in. I do believe that. I believe that his cell phone data proves that he never went in the house. The temperature. And also, when they showed the pants today, the back pocket was ripped, which made me think he got hit. It's still a long way to go. At this rate, I can't imagine that I'm going to make a video every single day about every single day, because there's going to be a lot more days. There's going to be potentially 6 more weeks. I have work for clients that I have to focus on because I have to get paid. Like, I have to spend a good chunk of my day every day working for clients to get paid. So I am listening to the trial. I am enjoying listening to it. I will say that by watching the trial, like just listening to the trial and not listening to other people stream it and, interject their thoughts. And actually listening, like I did listen to Peter Tragos tonight a little bit, and I will say that, he's a defense attorney, and he said, he thinks that there were things that looked kind of weird and discrepancies and stuff, but he also said he's looking at it from an extremely detailed place from, as a defense attorney. But he could completely understand and see that the likelihood of, I'm paraphrasing, but the gist of what he was saying is that he could totally see a non-lawyer, a regular person, a juror, not that lawyers aren't regular people, but somebody who's not analyzing it from this legal perspective, breaking down every single question, every single answer, every single detail, and hyper-focused on it. But actually, like, just getting the general, like, of course, details are important, and, one little piece of evidence can make or break a case. I do believe that sometimes. But what I think in this case is that there's so much evidence stacked against her. There's the things that she said to multiple people. There's the evidence. And this time around, I really, truly believe that Hank Brennan, the special prosecutor, is absolutely presenting the case clearer, more concise, in a more logical order, and the little audio clips that he's dropping, or the video clips interspersed with the witnesses, and I really do believe, Jessica Hyde, that Jen McCabe did not text "How's long to die in the cold?" "How's long to die in cold" at 2:27 a.m. I believe she did it at 6:23 a.m. I genuinely believe that, because when you look at everything else together in context, it just makes sense that she did it at 6:23, not at 2:27. I do believe that piece of evidence. I find it credible that Jen McCabe did that search in the morning on the lawn at the request of Karen after they found John. I think that Karen requesting that is also like another thing that's gotten completely obscured, I think, in the fact that they have honed in on, and they're like hyper fixated on this one little cellular artifact, which I feel Jessica explained thoroughly. She had that tab open. Actually, she had 2 tabs open at 2:27 a.m. She was searching the Weather Girls, It's Raining Men, Hallelujah, It's Raining Men song, and searching Hack-A-Mole basketball or whatever it was for her daughter. Those are the things she was doing at 2:27, and they explained how it is easy for someone who does not understand the information or know how to interpret it to be completely misguided or misinterpret it. And that is what I believe the defense did. And I actually don't think that they misinterpreted it. I think that they are using, again, any little snag in the perfection of something. They're like, ooh, that's a little thing we can claw away at and make reasonable doubt and point fingers at other people. But it just does not make sense in my mind, like many of the other things. Did Trooper Proctor... Oh, here, I wanted to read it. Okay, I'm going to read this, but over there. Why did Trooper Proctor get fired? Michael Proctor, it says here, the lead investigator, which is what Alan Jackson kept trying to hammer home. And I felt that Buchanan was being honest when he was like, he was the case manager, true, he did do stuff, but it's a team that works together. There's no such thing as just one guy doing everything or one person in charge of everything. There's too many moving parts. There's too many different departments. There's too many different people. There's too many things happening. There's too much going on for one person to be in charge of it all. Maybe in a much smaller town, I get it. Like, this town is small compared to some, but it's not a one-man band, in my opinion. So anyway, an investigator in the Karen Reed murder case was fired from the Massachusetts State Police for a series of violations, including sending offensive text messages about Reed, disclosing confidential information, and appearing biased in the investigation. He also violated policy by consuming alcohol while on duty and driving his cruiser, NBC News reported. The State Police Trial Board found him guilty of 4 violations leading to his termination. Offensive text messages. He sent derogatory and defamatory text messages about Reed. He disclosed confidential information about the investigation to non-law enforcement personnel, his fucking friend group, chat. An appearance of bias. The trial board found that Proctor's actions created the image that he was biased in his dealings with Reed. On-duty alcohol consumption. Proctor violated policy by consuming alcohol while on duty and subsequently driving his cruiser. These actions led to his suspension without pay and ultimately his firing. And I agree that was the right thing to do. But I get it. You could say, well, they're still protecting him. But what I'm saying is sending bad text messages, talking shit in a group chat with your friends that you thought was private. Like, he literally admitted that. I thought that shit was private. And I was telling my 13-year-old today, he had absolutely no expectation of privacy. He's a state trooper. And he does murder investigations sometimes. And you just need to know. I said, even you, none of us have this expectation of the ultimate privacy if somehow we're involved in a case. And yeah, even being a state trooper, your shit can get out there. You should know that. He should have known that. He should have never been texting that stuff in the first place, regardless, okay? And cops and troopers should be held to a high standard of behavior. I agree with all that. However, do I find that it leads me to believe that he must have done all that other stuff? It doesn't. And I want to just say, I should have said this in the first place, I am hardly pro-cop, to be honest. I'm down for defunding the police in a lot of situations, at least in the sense that there are a lot of other professionals who should be handling a lot of aspects that are, given out to cops who don't know what the fuck they're doing, and they make things worse a lot of the time. And I definitely know. The police were created. Original police were to recapture people who had been enslaved, who escaped, or who were, granted their freedom, who were released from being imprisoned, and that is what police were originally created for. So I hardly have delusions that police are the good guys all the time. There has been so much, countless police brutality, and that is obvious. And I could say that coming into this trial, yeah, I had a bias against cops. I have a bias against white women. Not all white women, but a lot of white women. I have a bias against white people in general. Why? Because white people tend to be the ones who do the most of the worst shit in the world. And that's just a fact, okay? And they're the ones who are doing the worst shit right now. So, not all white people, but of the ones who do the worst shit in the world, it's always fucking white people, okay? So I have biases. I have biases that would make me anti-cop, but I also have biases against you know, certain kind of women. So, but actually I was neutral going into this because, like I said, I don't have anything at stake here. I have literally nothing at stake. I have nothing to gain, nothing to lose other than some sleep because I'm staying up late making videos. So I could be wrong, but with all my bias against cops, I agree. Trooper Proctor should have been fired. And I agree that Yuri Buchanan was definitely answering on purpose in a way that I think he was trying to mind fuck Alan Jackson. Like, you're going to sit up here and try to make me look like a bad cop who's biased and corrupt and, doing a shoddy, shady investigation. I have a decade of experience interrogating potential murderers. Homicide investigator. You're not going to be able to mindfuck him, Alan Jackson. You're just not. I just don't think that you were able to get that off. It was annoying that he was answering every question almost, like by repeating the entire question in the answer instead of just saying yes or no. Like a lot of times he could have just said yes or no. But again, I feel like the way that he was answering, it was like he is going to be as specific as he possibly can. Again, he's a homicide investigator. He knows how murderers and liars and people who are trying to pull a fast one on you or, do the whole bait and switch and the clickaroo, which is what I think. This is a bait and switch. I think that this whole trial, that's what I was saying. The long version of what I was saying, it's like makes something seem like something it isn't and something else seem like something else that it isn't. Bait and switch. But I could totally, I can understand how, at this point, some people might say, what they might say, I think kind of puts people in the realm of like, those who decided that Casey Anthony was not guilty. It's like those people are the people. That kind of mindset where it's like, I know, motherfucker, that you killed this person. But no, to be honest, I think there's a lot more evidence against Karen Reed than there was against Kaylee. Casey. Oh, Kaylee. That's creepy. I just made that unintentional connection. Casey Anthony's daughter's name was Kaylee. And John's daughter is Kaylee. But that's sad. Anyway, my point is that, like, I feel that she is going to be found guilty, bare minimum, count 2. What? That is creepy. Oh, I thought it was a picture. Okay, in Massachusetts, vehicular manslaughter with a DUI conviction carries a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years in state prison, a maximum of 20. So it was a minimum sentence of 5 years in state prison and a maximum sentence of 20 years. Additionally, there's a potential fine of up to $25,000 and driver's license can be suspended for a minimum of 15 or potentially for life. Okay, I'm just reading over here some more facts. In Massachusetts, vehicular manslaughter, sentencing guidelines, minimum 5 years in state prison, mandatory minimum, maximum sentence in 20 years in state prison. This offense is a felony and carries mandatory minimum incarceration, meaning no parole, probation, or suspended sentence for at least 5 years. Aggravating factors could increase this sentence. Several factors can push a sentence closer to the 20-year maximum. prior DUI convictions, excessive blood alcohol content, a very high BAC, e.g. 0.15% or higher, may be seen as especially reckless. Reckless or dangerous driving actions like speeding excessively, running red lights, street racing, or fleeing police may be viewed as particularly egregious. Multiple victims or deaths. Presence of minors in the vehicle. Lack of remorse or attempt to flee. So in Karen's case, if they determine you did do it, and then if they say, you know what, we don't think it was second-degree murder. All right, breaking down the differences. Second-degree murder is a common law offense punished under, eligibility for parole after 15 years. Life in prison is the penalty. And it is a felony, malice, aforethought, without premeditation. The elements: the defendant caused the death of another person with malice aforethought, but without deliberate premeditation. It can include the intent to kill, the intent to cause grievous bodily harm, or depraved indifference to human life. The recklessness must arise to the level described as, quote, extreme atrocity or cruelty, or, quote, wanton and reckless conduct with a high degree of likelihood that substantial harm will result, end quote. And then manslaughter with a DUI, vehicular manslaughter, is a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison with a mandatory of 5. It means felony, involuntary manslaughter by means of a motor vehicle while under the influence. The defendant operated a motor vehicle under the influence of drugs or alcohol. The defendant operated the vehicle recklessly or negligently, and the conduct caused the death of another person. Wanton or reckless conduct, but not with an intent to kill, and considered a lesser level of culpability than murder. Okay, so I just asked ChatGPT. If somebody hit someone with their car while they were drunk and they didn't know it, but then they drove off, and then after they kind of thought, oh, maybe I did do it, and then they deleted Ring camera footage showing them going back home with a busted taillight, what would that do? And they said, this scenario introduces several serious legal complications beyond the core DUI manslaughter charge. Even if the driver didn't initially know that they had hit someone, their later behavior, especially fleeing the scene and destroying evidence, would likely have major legal consequences and could even escalate the charges or enhance sentencing. Here's how Massachusetts law would treat this. 1. Leaving the scene of a fatal accident, which is count 3 in this case. Mandatory minimum of 1 year up to 10 years in state prison. It can be added to any manslaughter or DUI sentence. Even if the driver didn't immediately know that they had hit someone, prosecutors would argue that they should have known, especially with a busted taillight and the impact involved. Courts often apply a, quote, reasonable person standard, end quote, not subjective ignorance. Once the driver suspected it and still failed to report it, criminal liability becomes clearer. 2. Tampering with evidence, obstruction of justice. That carries up to 10 years in prison, a felony. She's not even being charged with that. Deleting Ring camera footage to hide the broken taillight is classic evidence tampering. If prosecutors can prove that this was done to conceal the crime or to avoid prosecution, this is a separate felony and may be charged independently or used as an aggravating factor to push harder sentencing, which leads me to believe that if she were to be found guilty of this, they might say, okay, now that we know that you did this, we're going to prosecute you for tampering with evidence and obstruction of justice, which could add 10 years. Like Lori Vallow literally has multiple life sentences, and that bitch is still up in fucking prison. I mean, in prison and in court. It's like, how many life sentences is this bitch gonna get? It doesn't matter, because every case that she's involved in deserves to go through the process, and the victims deserve to go through the process, and even her, she deserves her due process. Okay, number 3, consciousness of guilt. Even if no tampering charge sticks, deleting evidence and fleeing are admissible at trial as proof of, quote, consciousness of guilt, end quote, a powerful narrative for the prosecution. It shows the defendant likely knew that she was guilty, or at least feared she was, which undermines any defense that the incident was a tragic mistake, and which is what they should, my opinion, I truly believe with every bit of my being, every fiber in my being, every vibrational wiggle that wiggles around and in and all about, which really is kind of creepy, making me feel bad. But anyway, I think if her defense team had really pushed, like this was a tragic accident, she truly had no idea. She thought she saw him walking in, maybe, because remember that there was somebody who saw her there, and there was the guy who went into the house, right? Actually, it wasn't a guy, it was Julie Nagel. So I don't know if I would believe that, Karen saw Julie Nagel getting out of the car and walking to talk to her brother at the window and going back, and thought somehow that was John. But that's what I'm saying. If I was the defense, I would say she thought she saw John. She saw a figure. It was dark. It was snowing. As far as she knew, he got out of the car. She looked up. She saw somebody walking towards the door, which was Julie Nagel, but she thought it was John. She couldn't tell. They had coats on. They had their hood up. You could barely see. It was just a figure. It was just the silhouette of a figure. She's innocent, Your Honor. She had no idea. She thought she dropped him off. She thought she saw him walking in. It just was a tragic accident. She didn't know. I think that if she went with that angle and she wasn't pointing fingers at everybody else, I think that if she had leaned in really, really hard to that angle from that moment that they were there on the lawn, from the moment that they were there on the lawn, if she had just leaned all the way into that and never let up, I could very easily believe that she would have gotten off, whether she got a plea deal and never even went to trial, or did go to trial. Let's say the prosecution was like, nah, we don't believe you. Or they could have said, well, you were drunk. We saw you were drunk. So let's just say in my hypothetical that she said, it was an accident. I thought I saw him walk in. I had no idea he was there. And because of the weather and, the howling winds and the snow and all that stuff, I didn't see him. And I didn't know that I clipped him. Because it sounds like with his shoe being in the embankment on the berm, the curb, I think, and she said, maybe I ran over his foot, which is so specific. And, I think that something happened that caused him, so many people were like, there's no way that his body was hit by a vehicle. But that's just not true. There's lots of ways his body could have been hit, but not again, like I've said multiple times, it's not as if they're claiming that he was run, she didn't run over him right? But if he was clipped in some way where it made him kind of go flying, maybe he did hit his head on the hydrant, maybe he did his head on the berm, maybe he hit it on the concrete, maybe the ground was frozen as hard as concrete. There's so many possibilities of what could have happened, and there he was lying there right where she left him, without a shoe, with a cracked skull and dead. So all the people who are saying he didn't have injuries, he didn't have any injuries, motherfucker, he was dead with a cracked skull and blood coming out. Like, that's not good enough for y'all? Okay. So like I was saying, his jeans were not ripped in the videos of CF McCarthy and the waterfall bar. So I feel convinced that she hit him. And that's what I was saying. Like, I really do feel like all the sympathy that she's getting now, just imagine if she had not blamed a whole bunch of people and pointed fingers and talked about this whole big conspiracy theory and just simply said, like, I truly, I loved him so much. And I had no idea. And, you know, he wanted to go to the party and I thought I would go to the party, but my IBS was acting up and I had to go to the bathroom so bad. And maybe that's part of why I rushed off, because, you know, he got out and I was like, oh, I'm about to shit myself. So I just zoomed off because I was literally about to poop on myself and I just needed to get home so fast. So I just was like, okay, bye. And I went. But then why was she calling him? Ooh, how do you explain that though, Karen? Well, you could say, yeah, I mean, we had a fight, that's true. I had to go poo-poo so bad. And plus I was mad at him because I thought that he was having a thing with somebody else. And I was jealous. To be honest, I was jealous. I had to go poo-poo and it was late and I was tired and I was like, I don't want to say I was drunk, but, you know, I was really tired and I wasn't thinking straight and I was so jealous. And so I was like, oh, I gotta go, and beep. And I pulled off and, you know, but I was jealous and I was mad. So I was calling him and he wouldn't answer. He wouldn't text. And then I got really jealous, thinking like, oh my God, he's, you know, he went there. He went to her house and I just started to freak out. I was totally freaked out. And I had no idea that I had actually hit him. And there he was. And there we found him dead. And I'm super sorry about it. I didn't mean it for it to happen. And, you know, I'm wealthy and I can get a plea deal. I can get a plea deal. I think she could have got a plea deal. I do. I think that the law works differently for different folks, and if you're rich and you're white and you got money, you can get a plea deal. You could you know, plead it down and just get manslaughter and then do some, like, you know, home arrest, house arrest, something like that. I don't know. But you know what? Maybe there's enough people on the jury who will see things like many of the people in the comments. Many people in the comments, and, you know, Peter Tragos, Emily D. Baker, you know, Carl Steinbeck, who I can't bear to watch him anymore because I'm just like, ooh, he's so biased. Well, what I don't like is that somebody who's biased, but they won't admit that they're biased. Like, I'm admitting I'm biased. I'm biased against cops. I'm biased against white women. And also, at this point, watching the first trial, again, I don't feel that they showed it as clearly as they are this time. I feel that last time I felt a lot more unsure, where this time, Hank Brennan, the special prosecutor who's helping Lolly, or who's leading now, I feel that he's just laid it out so much more clearly. So, you know, the jurors may not be thinking the way I'm thinking, because I already believed that she most likely had hit him. She could have nudged him. But I felt like there was a lot of, like, loose ends and unanswered questions. I will say that when they showed the shirt, they did not, yet again, they did not hyper focus on any pieces of broken plastic in the sleeve. they didn't talk about it. So I don't know why, because to me, that's one of those, like, if they had pieces of broken plastic in his shirt sleeve, that's that one piece of evidence that's everything to me. That's the proof right there. But they didn't show it. So I find that weird. Why didn't they show it? But, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question. However, watching the second time around and the way they're doing it this time, I absolutely felt like I saw that picture at John's house. When was that? That was like after they'd found him, and when they did the wellness check and they went to John's house and her SUV was still there. And to me, it was clear as day. Her taillight was completely broken. A big chunk was missing. And that was before Proctor had her car. So I feel like that's pretty definitive that it was broken. However, because it was filled in with snow, you couldn't see like the details of exactly how it looked. So that's one of those fuzzy things where the defense, and that they are an amazing defense in the fact that any single bit, any speck of a question mark floating, they have snagged it and magnified it and hammered that shit home. And if they can do it enough if they can whack-a-mole enough facts down and they can elevate enough confusion, all you really need is one juror who is just confused enough where they're like, I don't know, I have some doubt and I feel like it's reasonable. The thing is that for me, I've never been able to get over the hump of, but why? Why would that many people do that? None of those people came across to me as somebody who would do that. None of them seemed like I really believed that the things that they were hiding probably was, pretty nasty things. They probably did despise Karen. They probably weren't too fond of her in the first place. And then this whole thing happened and they probably were like, this fucking bitch killed our friend. And maybe they didn't want law enforcement to know that. And, they should show it. I know that they submitted all of Jen McCabe's texts. They submitted a bunch of texts between John and Kaylee, his niece, from the 28th to the 29th of January in 2022, which we didn't get to see. But the jury will get to see it. They'll get to deliberate on that. And if they do what they did the last trial, the niece and nephew did testify. It just happened to be confidential and they didn't show or even do audio. So we didn't get to hear it. But, and they'll probably do that again. But, yeah. So those are my thoughts for today. Normally I do the captions. Let's see, it's 11 o'clock. So, you know what? I guess I'm going to do this tomorrow. At least I wanted to record my thoughts. So my final thoughts would be, if you think Karen is innocent, then there's a bunch of things you could pick apart in Trooper or in Sergeant Buchanan's testimony. And I admit that. There's things that you could be like, nah. My mind is that none of those things elevate to the level of erasing out the facts that I've found out about Karen so far. So far, the way that I'm kind of like weighing this is that on the one side, I've got all the facts and evidence against Karen, her own statements, the physical evidence, the text messages from that day, her behavior with Brian Higgins, her behavior. So I'm not even supposed to be contemplating this because it's not even going to come in this trial, but there was all the behavior in Aruba. Again, this is why I would not be qualified as an actual juror because I am biased and I already have a preconceived notion based on the first trial. But I did come away at the first trial saying a mistrial was the right answer because I didn't feel that they had proven beyond a reasonable doubt the things that I would want proven in order to say, okay, this woman can go to jail for 5 years or 20 years or maybe even life. Like, that's a big deal. It's a big threshold. It's a big responsibility and a big burden to know that you're the one who could be either putting an innocent woman in prison or letting an innocent woman go or putting a murderer in prison or releasing an innocent woman to her freedom. Like, every single aspect of the choice is a big one. And the choice that you make, if you decide that she's innocent, you could potentially be obstructing justice for a victim of a murder if you get it wrong. And if you say she's guilty, but she actually isn't guilty, you could be potentially putting an innocent woman in jail for 5 years, up to her whole life. So it's a really big deal, which is why I do believe that the majority of jurors take it really seriously. Of course, there are corrupt people out there who will lie, cheat, steal, and tamper with evidence, tamper with witnesses, and try to make a case go sidewise because that's what is in their best interest, despite the fact that that's not the right thing or what justice is. And I recognize that that's true and that's real. For example, Wendy motherfucking bitch ass face Adelson, walking free, a murderer, a cold-blooded motherfucking murderer, even though she didn't pull the trigger. In my opinion, she's just as bad, because that is, hiring somebody to kill somebody is just as bad as pulling the trigger yourself. At least legally it is. And that bitch is walking free, and I don't think she's ever going to get arrested. People used to say, oh, she's going to get arrested after Donna is convicted, and I'm like, that makes no sense. It can take years for Donna to get convicted, and as I predicted, her case was pushed. Now it's not going to happen till, like, when was it now? Like September or August. I don't know. It's like, what the fuck? It's 2025. He was killed. Dan Markel died, murdered in 2014. It's been 11 years, and the main murderer is still walking free. So I get it. It happens. Karen Reed could very well get acquitted and be walking free. And that very well may be what ends up happening. But I feel she's going to jail for 20 years. That's what I think. 20 years sentence for Karen. We'll see. Keep on watching. I got more things to read. I have my little cup of vegan Cool Whip. And my little vegan treat that I was eating. They're cute little things, and I was eating it with the Cool Whip. And I got my vegan fries and my vegan pizza. Anyway, did I mention I'm vegan? Okay, so I'm going to keep reading because I was reading some interesting things and then I stopped. Okay, so let me scroll back up. So I'm trying to get to bed no later than 1 right now. And then, so what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to record this clip and then I'm going to add it to the others. And then I'm not going to do the captions right now because that takes a lot of time. And then I will save this video and share it for my members only, because I really appreciate my members, and this way people who are supporting me extra, I mean, if you subscribe and you like videos and you watch videos, you're supporting me. I appreciate that. But if you want to help me, support me to be able to make more videos more often, higher quality videos or whatever, then I appreciate that. So what I used to do a lot, this is a sidebar, is I would make videos late in the night and then I would just share them publicly, and they would like get super low views because hardly anybody was online, and then I feel like it was negatively impacting my channel. But now I've decided that when I make those late videos, I can do a late night drop and share it with for my members. And then, you know, if my members happen to be up late, or like, I don't know what time zone you're in. Oh, by the way, one more shout out. Big shout out. Paul Ratcliffe. That was the third name that I forgot off the top of my head. Thank you for joining as a member. I really appreciate you. And so, yeah, I'm just letting people know, if you've subscribed to my page but you haven't taken the next step to become a member, I am letting you know that there are benefits if you're up late and or you appreciate late night drops, or, you know, it doesn't always have to be late. Sometimes I might, you know, have thoughts that I've compiled and I've made a draft video and I can share it. Or another thing that I'm starting to do is screen recording specific clips of trial and then compile that into a video. By the way, I posted one, but the volume of my voiceover was like really loud, so I think I have to fix that. Anyway, the point is that if you want to become a member, it will definitely benefit you as well as me. Okay, so scrolling back to you know, if you knew you hit somebody and then you didn't know, but then you left and then you were like, oh shit, I think I might have hit that guy. You know, what would the consequences be and all that. So I also talked about the consciousness of guilt. Okay, and then possible charges in this scenario. If somebody was driving drunk, hit a pedestrian, killed them, even unknowingly at the time, drove away, later suspected their involvement, and then deleted surveillance footage, they could face vehicular manslaughter while DUI, 5 to 20 years, leaving the scene of a fatal accident, 1 to 10 years, and that is counts 2 and 3. Evidence tampering up to 10 years, operating under the influence, OUI, which is like a DUI, on its own if proven, has separate penalties. Possibly involuntary manslaughter, or even second-degree murder if the recklessness was extreme and shown to be willful disregard for human life. So Emily D. Baker has said, I don't know how they got to second-degree murder, and I have not really known, but now I feel like I know, because what they're saying is, or what they could be saying is, not necessarily like you wanted to kill him and you killed him on purpose, but rather your recklessness was so extreme that it did show a willful disregard for human life, and that elevates it to the next level beyond just involuntary manslaughter. That's where I could see it going to that second-degree murder. Sentencing impact. These additional charges can stack or lead to a much longer sentence. Even if charges don't stack, aggravating behavior like fleeing and deleting evidence can convince a judge to impose closer to the 20-year maximum on the vehicular manslaughter alone. Okay, and then, so if she knew she did it and she blamed other people, does that make it worse? Oh yeah, bitch. Yes. Blaming others when you know you're guilty can absolutely make things worse, both legally and in practical terms. And here's how that typically plays out. 1, obstruction of justice or false statements. If someone knowingly blames another person, especially to police or in official proceedings, that can be charged as 1, obstruction of justice, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 268, and I think that's paragraph 13B. 2, filing a false report or false statements to Massachusetts or to police. Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 269, paragraph 13A. These are felonies or serious misdemeanors, depending on how it's done and the impact. It becomes especially serious if the false accusations lead to someone being arrested or investigated, resources being diverted, the investigation being delayed. You think resources being diverted might have something to do with having 2 fucking trials to prove that somebody else did it when you know that you hit him, bitch? Could be, if that is allegedly. And then 2, which is like, the others were like A and B. Consciousness of guilt again. Blaming others while knowing you're guilty is textbook example of, quote, consciousness of guilt, end quote. Prosecutors love this because it shows knowledge of wrongdoing, willingness to lie and manipulate, lack of remorse. At sentencing, this can increase the perceived moral culpability and justify harsher punishment. Judges are often harsh on defendants who lie or falsely implicate others to cover their own actions. Ooh. The moral and strategic damage at trial. This is number 3. Number 3, moral and strategic damage at trial. Even if not charged as obstruction, the fact that you tried to frame others can destroy your credibility with a jury, make your defense attorney's job much harder, undermine any plea for leniency or claims of remorse. If the case goes to trial, the prosecution will highlight that not only did the defendant kill someone while drunk and flee, they also tried to put it on someone else, and that's devastating. In summary, yes, if you knew that you're guilty and deliberately blamed somebody else, it dramatically worsens your legal position. It can add new criminal charges. It can increase your sentence. It can kill any chance at leniency. Alrighty. Then I asked if John O'Keefe's family filed a civil suit against her. Yes, John O'Keefe's family has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Karen Reed. The civil suit, initiated in August of 2024, also names 2 Canton, Massachusetts bars, C.F. McCarthy and Waterfall Bar and Grill, as co-defendants. The family alleges that Reed, while intoxicated, struck O'Keefe with her SUV and left him to die in the snowstorm on January 29th of 2022. They also claim that the bars overserved her that night. The lawsuit seeks, with the $50,000 damages is just a placeholder. It said it could be much, much higher. Wrongful death, conscious pain and suffering, fear of impending death, emotional distress, loss of value to the next of kin, other compensable damages. What is that other one? All right, I did captions on that one. But now, because I really kind of wanted the words on the screen. So what does loss of value to next of kin mean? Loss of value to next of kin. Quote, loss of value to next of kin, end quote, is a legal term used in wrongful death lawsuits to describe the economic value of the deceased person's life to their closest family members. It's a way of calculating what the family lost financially when their loved one died. Here's a breakdown of what it can include. 1, lost financial support. This is the money the deceased would have earned and contributed to their family over a lifetime, including wages, salary, bonuses, pensions, retirement benefits, health insurance or other job perks, household services, e.g., child care, housework. Yes, courts put a dollar value on this. Okay, for example, a 46-year-old police officer making $85,000 a year dies. Courts might estimate that 20 plus years of lost income and benefits to the family. 2, lost inheritance. If the deceased had been expected to leave money, property, or assets to their family, the lawsuit can claim a reduction in estate value, lost opportunity for wealth transfer. This is especially relevant when the person was young, successful, or providing for dependents, which John was, and he had that house. And I think that the kids are still living in that house, and maybe the grandparents moved in or something at this point, or, maybe the Uncle Paul and the grandparents and other stuff like that rotate and take care. I don't know for sure. Okay, 3, loss of services. Courts also consider the value of things the person did now that must be replaced or paid for. Parenting, elder care, home repairs, financial decision making, giving people rides, being moral support. Those last two I just threw in there, but it's part of it, I believe. 4, loss of guidance, support, and companionship. Well, that's what I was just saying. Sometimes included here, although sometimes filed as a separate claim in Massachusetts and other states, this emotional aspect may be factored into, quote, loss of next to kin, loss to next of kin, end quote, if it's tied to family dynamics, loss of a parent's guidance to children, loss of a spouse's emotional and practical support. How it can be calculated, usually with expert testimony, e.g. forensic economists, employment history and expected career trajectory, age, health, and life expectancy, relationship to the claimants. Are they the spouse, the kids, to the dependent parents? In summary, quote, loss of value to next of kin, end quote, equals what the deceased would have provided financially and practically to their closest family if they had lived. It's one of the major components in a wrongful death damages claim. So now it's doing a breakdown, a sample for wrongful death case similar to John O'Keefe's, based on publicly known facts and standard Massachusetts civil law principles. This is an illustrative estimate only. Actual damages could vary based on trial evidence and jury findings. Hypothetical profile based on O'Keefe, aged at death 46, occupation Boston police officer, estimated annual salary plus benefits $125,000 a year, life expectancy about 78 years of work remaining 20, no spouse, but he had his niece and nephew he was raising. Loss of future earnings could be up to $2.5 million. Loss of services to the family, $200,000. Conscious pain and suffering, if he was aware before his death, $250,000 to $1 million, depends on evidence of awareness during injury or hyperthermia. The jury could award $250K to $1 million. Emotional distress to the family members directly involved or in the aftermath. Massachusetts limits this to specific situations. Estimate $100,000 to $300,000 if applicable. 5, loss of companionship, guidance, and support, especially as he was raising his niece and nephew, could range from $250K to $750,000. Funeral and burial costs average to $15,000. An estimated total civil judgment range, $2.5 million to $4.1 million. This would be before any punitive damages, which are rarely awarded in Massachusetts wrongful suits, which are rarely awarded in Massachusetts wrongful death suits unless the conduct was truly outrageous, which I think it is if they prove that she hit him and she blamed everybody else and dragged this shit out for so long and had them bullied and harassed and despised by so many people based on lies. But if these are proven to be lies, then they can multiply the damages. So yeah, but if she's found not guilty, all that goes down the drain, right? And you can be technically found guilty it's not guilty, it's liable. You can be found liable in a civil case even if you're not found guilty in a criminal case. But, because they're specifically waiting to see what happens in the criminal case. So here's just a sample chart all the damages. Let's see, what's it say? High and low. So it's just showing like she might end up, if she's found guilty, she could end up spending her whole life in prison or decades and end up having to pay out millions of dollars to the O'Keefe family. Or on the other hand, she could be found not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, walk free, and then what? Do the O'Keefes just let it go? And they just walk away and say, okay. What happens then? All right, I'm going to leave it there. I think I might generate captions for this clip. And I got like a bunch of clips in the middle that I didn't because I was just, on a roll. And every time I generate captions, it like probably stops me for maybe not 10 minutes, but it, can be depending on, because I go in and I try to fix some typos and then I like format it and then move it around and squeeze it and do all that stuff and make sure that they don't hang over the side. And when I auto-generate the captions and then auto-select that one, the white view, and then I don't bother to try to correct any typos, I can do it quicker that way. So I'll probably do that for some, at least for this one. All right, guys, this will be a members only until I am able to get back to it and maybe fix it up, and or I'll just decide, fuck it, I'll just share it for my public page tomorrow. So we'll see.
CatLoveDreamingBeach.com.
Home from dropping my kids off at school this morning. It is Friday, May 9th, 2025. It's 8:20 a.m., 8:17. So anyway, I was just like listening to the video I made last night. And there was a part where I was trying to make a point, but again, I cut myself off, which was in this whole, like, how's long to die in cold, 2:27 a.m., did Jen text it at 2:27 or 6:23? I believe that what is getting missed is the fact that if we believe that Karen did actually tell Jen to Google how's long to die in cold at 6:23 a.m., isn't that evidence of additional consciousness of guilt? Which is, I think, the whole humongous point. Did I mention it's raining? The whole humongous point that's getting missed in the debacle of trying to prove that Jen McCabe actually did that search at 2:27, which is like trying to give ownership to this search to Jen. But if you're giving ownership of the search to Jen, then that means that you're not paying attention to the fact that, no, actually it was Karen who said how's long to die in the cold, which is evidence that Karen knew he was out there for hours. Because why would she be asking Jen to Google how's long to die in cold if she had no idea how he ended up there and she thought that he went inside the house to the party? Then why are you wondering how long does it take to die outside in the cold if you dropped him off and you would have no reason to think that he was laying out there? And I get it. Somebody could say, well, she saw him out there and she didn't know how long he was out there, but she just wanted to know how long it would. Why would you want to know how long it takes to die outside if you have no idea how long he's been out there? Although the level of snow that was on top of him and how much he was covered, I think, is a clue, right? And I think that that's what the jurors are going to take away. That there was bare ground underneath him and he was covered so much that they had to take snow off of his face, and he was obvious that he had been out there for a long time, for hours. So I just wanted to make that point. I just wanted to make that point because I really do think that because of the way the defense is, like I said, doing this conflate clickbait kind of, everything that they can make seem like something bigger than it is, or something salacious or malicious or ill intent when it wasn't. And oh, right, I should have gone. Like this whole thing, by getting all these people to hyper focus on, did Jen McCabe do a Google search at 227 and make all these people think Jen is guilty of something, when again, in my opinion, Jen was just trying to help Karen. Jen didn't have anything to do with it, except she was dragged into it by Karen, who called her at 4:53 a.m. in the morning, dragging her outside at night in a blizzard, in the freezing cold, in the dark. And Jen would jump up and go out there and risk her own life just so she could frame Karen? Like, how does it make sense? That's what I'm saying. This whole conflate clickbait situation, like, you're fucking crazy. You're fucking crazy. I get it. The defense has been really good at high drama and confusion and making it seem like something is something it isn't, in my opinion. You hear my windshield wipers going? Oh. All right, now I have work to do, and I might try to get this video out, although actually I have a lot of work to do. All right, let's go out in this rain. And it's garbage day, and yesterday was recycling, and some fucking creep put an open plate of chicken and rice in my recycling. Like, who does that? That's sick. I gotta take out the garbage. And I gotta get some work done. So I'm gonna have to put Karen Reed on pause for today. I mean, I will listen. Definitely gonna be listening. And I'll take notes. But I'm also going to have to focus on my paid clients. So if you love my videos and you really want me to be able to make more videos more often, then you can join as a member. You can be a free subscriber. Oh, turn on my lights. But I gotta make money. I gotta pay my bills. And, working for free for my passion, sure, it's fun and all, but don't pay no bills. So that's where I'm at. I'm home and got to get to work. Let's see, what time is it? It's 8:24. Turn on my little light. Actually, it's my little clock. I love this clock. You can dim it. So every night I dim it down because I have it right here on the wall by my bed. All right. See, there it is on the wall behind me. So when I go to sleep, I turn it down low. All right, guys, I'll see you later. And I'll see you tomorrow. Don't forget to hit like, hit share, hit subscribe, hit the bell notification. Join me on Patreon and my website and YouTube and TikTok at catlovedreamingpeach.com. Mwah. See you later. baby. All right, bye for now.